All right, for those of you who have been struggling just to get started with Roto, you can imagine this as a game show, and this is where we get to simplify your challenge. What I've done is gone ahead and started you out by doing the left limbs using a couple different methods. I'm just going to describe for you what I did, so let's get into it. We of course started out with the masks in the rough edit, and of course we've got our backplate there. And the way that I imported this, by the way, I just want to re-emphasize this, was by saying import Adobe Premiere Pro project. So don't use dynamic link. It just doesn't work as well. So that was my starting point, and then you can see that I organized things here. But let's get into what's in these two layers here. Let's start with the arm. So you'll see that I have a Mocha effect applied and then extract and refine hard matte. So in Mocha, all I was doing was giving myself a garbage matte, but it is an animated one. Let's get this scaled up properly. We are in the unfamiliar world of Mocha, so you got to get used to all the tools and shortcuts that are in here just to use it. But all I did was draw a very loose mask, and Mocha likes these, especially when what's behind the arm is uniform as it is here. And so you can see that it did a really nice job of just holding out that arm so I can extract it. Now, how did I even decide to get to this point? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to turn off the effects, and let's just go channel by channel and look at this footage. So her pants are very white compared to the sea. So initially you might think, oh, I've got a good shot of extracting those white pants. The problem that I found is that the shadow areas underneath are very similar to what's behind. So while I did get a good clean line along the top, I did not on the bottom. But I did see great definition with the arm, particularly on this green channel. So that's why I decided to first isolate the arm. I'll turn this back on and turn these off. So there's my isolated arm, and then the extract effect, which is color keying just on the green channel. That is the one thing that I changed. Set that to green, and then basically, let's get the whole histogram showing, you can see it, and just brought in the top. If I reset this, just came in on the top here, and then added a little bit of thresholding there. And that leaves us with a bit of a matte line, top and bottom, especially on the bottom. So to clean that up, I added a refine hard matte effect just to decontaminate the edge and get rid of that matte line. And then also to just actually shift the edge in a little bit to crop it just slightly and then soften it with a slight feather. So that's what worked for me there. And remember that as far as the hair goes, I'm gonna recommend Roto Brush for that rather than extract, even though again, it's pretty well isolated. You can try whatever you think will work for you. Her top also is well differentiated from the background, particularly again on the green or the blue channel. Actually, the blue is even better for the hair and the top, but it's a little noisier. So the green channel tends to be a little cleaner, and that's usually the case if I didn't mention that already. So now we've cheated and not really had to do any real roto. We just kind of tracked a garbage matte. So now let's take a look at where the real roto is happening. Up here on top, need to zoom out a little bit so you can see it. Here are my masks from Mocha. Now, Mocha for roto, and particularly organic roto like this, is far from automated, but it is still preferable to actually trying to draw these masks out just with the masks in the timeline, in my opinion. So let's take a look at how I did it. Here in Mocha, you can barely see some shapes over the leg. If I select those roto shapes and go to classic view, this is an added extra. You don't need to do this, but it's just nice to show you this way. Now I have these overlays. I can go back to Essentials view, and let's just preview that. And you can see that that is looking pretty good. And there's not a ton of motion here, but there's just enough that you'd notice if you didn't get it right. Can zoom in a little bit. Remember, in Mocha, all the tools work differently, and I realized it's like learning a whole new language. That was the Z key and sliding with the mouse to zoom, and the hand tool is my middle mouse button on my 3-button mouse. If you don't have that, you can also use the X key. Here's how I did this. I believe I actually started with the upper leg. So my first track was this one here, which I'll turn back on. Now notice, by the way, that I don't have tracking turned on for any of these. So as I did each one, I turned it off. But let's just start with this one, and I had tracking turned on. And you can see I started at the end, and the way you can see that is this green keyframe there. So I just tracked backwards and didn't need any other keyframes. And here's what I got. Now notice, once again, this mask is a garbage mask. It's outside of the area that I wanted to find. You can see this other mask, that's the one that I parented to it. So that was actually my next step, was to then draw roto, again, starting at the very last frame. And I'm gonna zoom in again. You can see how much detail I put in here. That's how I decided to do it. I didn't even want to get rid of the wrinkles. I wanted to get everything. As a result, I did have to add some keyframes along the way. So basically, I did this as you do. I just looked for points where it moved away. You could actually right there tighten that up a little bit. I mean, but really this is definitely in the good enough realm, what I did here, as you can see. And so 3 keyframes plus being parented with the initial motion to this loose track got me there. Then the lower leg, same approach. So for the lower leg, again, keyframe is at the very end. Let's turn this one on. There it is. So again, loose garbage mask track, same deal. Again, it's working because there's no real movement in anything in the area I don't want. It's really just picking up on the movement of the leg. So that's great. And then this bottom layer is parented. Now parenting, just to review that, in layer properties, you set the link to track, which is parenting option here. So I carefully labeled and colored these to try to make it clear which was related to which, but it's in layer properties that you see that. And the fill color that I set is set by this little swatch here, but that's an extra. So really the essentials here were just going in, and now again with this one setting more keyframes this time, and that's mostly because of the flapping of this lower leg. You can see here, I could have gotten a little tighter there, but the main thing you're gonna notice in the final result is if the mask is actually over the blue ocean part. So if we crop out a little bit of the white, probably not the end of the world since we've got a good mask. Now notice the mask extends down here, but I have this other mask at the top, and the way it works in Mocha is if that's turned on, it's effectively doing a, I'm trying to remember the name of the mask mode, where it's choosing the top one to hold out the bottom one, essentially. And so you can see actually that last keyframe could have been better. So I'm just gonna tighten that up right now. I turned off my points. I'm getting a little too clever for myself here. So I need these back. I'm gonna actually turn off that fill. And now I can adjust it. I could do it one at a time like that, or I could multi-select and move all of these down like that. And maybe this one a little bit too. All right. Anyway, that is the foot. In this case, I just went ahead and keyframed it. So I didn't track it at all. You can see it's red. So a track was never run on this, and it's not parented to anything. But this one is just on its own with keyframes, and that's how that's done. And that is pretty much all it took. And I hope that doesn't seem like a lot. And I'm gonna get out of here, and then I don't need to save this. Oh, well, I did change the foot. Oh, well. The final thing that I did to just improve on what we got was just basically do a better job with the mat itself, which in the editorial version, oh, I think I need this rough edit one actually to show you this. Yeah, that one. So it's just super sloppy. But the mat doesn't move at all. So obviously that's an easy one. Gave it a little feather, gave everything a little bit of feather to just give it that nice soft quality. And let's turn effects back on for this one. So you can see the bit of feathering. There's just a hint of blue here, but the whole thing is a little bit blue from the reflected light. So I think that's going to be taken care of in the color correction. All right. And to do the left side, I left out the gluteus because it's more connected to the right leg. So you could consider one shape to be that and continue on like I just showed you. All right, good luck.